All right. Okay, welcome everyone. Welcome to our first element61 official podcast. Here next to me, so I'm Joran Vergouwen. I'm a data scientist at element61 and also co-host of the Generative AI meetup group. And next with me are here Florian and Peter. So maybe introduce us shortly.
Yes,
Who are you?
I will start. The youngest will start. So I'm Florian. I'm a data scientist at element61. Mainly involved with all of the AI and machine learning projects within element61. And then 1 year ago, I think I also jumped on the bandwagon of the hype of generative AI. So yeah, happy to talk about this interesting subject.
Cool. And you, Peter?
Yeah, so Peter, I'm the partner of data science analysis at element61, mainly on the commercial side of things. So I hear a lot of things that customers want to do with AI, and then I try to discuss with the team how we can embed it and how we can build something for our customers.
Yeah.
So that's a little bit my angle on this whole topic.
All right, cool. So let's then just jump into the first topic, shall we? So the first one is already a big one. It's the GPT store. So let's maybe take your angle already. Okay, what is a GPT store, and maybe how do you see customers maybe working with it? What's your take on it, Peter?
Yeah, so I think about 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago, OpenAI launched their GPT store. GPT store as part of the offering they put into the market. If we read a little bit about the GPT store in the news and articles, etc., everyone is stating it's kind of the app store of GPTs.
Yeah. What does it mean? How does it work then?
Yeah, and so what in essence it is you have the plain ChatGPT, which is you ask a question, you get a response, you have different models in there. GPT store, it's actually developers who created certain applications, certain mini bundled solutions on top of ChatGPT that are really specified and focused on one particular domain or one particular task.
So you and I can just go to the store, create our own model, and then just publish it there. That's the idea.
Yeah. And what is interesting about it is that it's actually integrating quite well with external applications as well. So developers make the link with their own application.
Right.
As an example, you have, for example, Canva. It's the one that is popping up on top. Canva is, of course, known for graphical design. Rather than going to Canva and knowing the tool and clicking and adding titles and figures, etc., you just ask the Chat or the GPT solution of Canva. I want to create a certain visual. This is the text, and it will link to Canva service, and it will pop up something back towards the end user.
All right, cool. Have you already heard of it? And what do you think it can bring or not bring
and
for
I
businesses?
Think if I can add to it, it's also interesting because it's a layer not on top, but I would say behind ChatGPT, because ChatGPT is we interact with actually the big LLM, the AI model, but it's just using its common sense, its knowledge or its understanding about natural language. But what these GPT stores or these GPT specific models or these configurations actually do is that they use a RAG, which is the augmented retrieval system.
RAG, what's that? RAG? What is it exactly?
Nu gaat je antwoorden. Retrieval Augmented Generation, I think, right? Dodge that bullet. Where the models are using parts of context, which can be all sorts of documents, but it can also be the information from an application. So, for example, information about Canva, or one that I like quite a lot is, I think it's one of the top 5 as well, is All Trails. So it's like an application where you can look for your hike, which is close by, or if you're in the Ardennes or on holiday, you can ask. And it will use that information that is in the databases in the backend to actually come up with a natural language produced answer, but in combination with the specific company environment and the specific company documents. And I think that is super powerful and really enables a lot of new applications where you can combine the power of having a natural language model that just that we're able to communicate with in combination with all the information that you as a company want to share with the world.
Then probably one question that the people listening in right now most likely have is, do I now need to abandon my own Gen AI projects and run towards this GPT store and start developing everything over there, or do you see it differently?
Yeah, I think there it's an interesting one. Also, how you can consider the GPT store, because the first question is how will all those companies monetize on it?
Yeah.
At the App Store, well, you actually buy the app or you actually buy a license. I don't think that will happen. I don't think people will want to pay for that kind of layer. How organizations that build their own GPTs will monetize is by pushing their services in an easily accessible way. And I think there's where the money is. All companies that I'm talking to and we're working with, they are actually really tailoring a specific solution for their specific problem. And so I think you should really separate it from one another. The whole GPT store for me is probably more B2C in the consumer market, whereas building your own Gen AI applications is probably more in a, well, I as a company have a specific problem and I build something to solve that problem.
Interesting. Yeah. And I would also think that there are like data governance issues, right? When you build these things with a tool that is just there to upload your files, or how do you guys see that?
Yeah, I think from a technical perspective, I think the GPT stores are very quick enablers. But of course, then you have the whole data governance, also legal, etc., security. But also productionizing this kind of flow, because I don't know if someone experienced or experimented with the GPT store, but you kind of have to upload your documents. Okay. Yeah, uploading is a manual action, is a one-time thing. What if, for example, you want to create an application or GPT store on documents, information is constantly changing, you have to create a solid backend that can automatically pick up these changes, etc. So that's where I think, and not even talking about the legal part in that aspect, where of course ChatGPT has maybe not yet the reputation of a Microsoft, of an Amazon, to really have those fully closed and secured data platforms in which you are able to actually also create your own GPT store, but fully in your own environment, which of course needs maybe a bit more development, because it's not just clicking in a UI, but I think for future and for production ready applications, I think there's a big opportunity to use that inspiration of the GPT store, but to move it to your own environment.
All right, cool. I think that wraps it up for the first topic. I think that's really nice. We also have a second really exciting topic, right? Which is the GitHub, not the GitHub. I always say GitHub Copilot for some reason, but it's Microsoft Copilot, right?
Microsoft 365 Copilot.
Yeah. So we actually had the opportunity to play with it a bit. So yeah, I'm gonna pass the word to you. Like, what did you already try out? What were you excited about and worked, or what were you excited about and didn't end up working? Like, what's your experience with it?
Yeah. So maybe to link to the previous topic as well. In essence, what Microsoft has done is they created their own GPT, which is called Copilot, and is actually within their whole Office suite, embedded within all the different applications. So. What you can do is within Teams, within Outlook, within Word, within PowerPoint, and just having a Copilot as well. You can ask questions on documents. You can ask questions on whatever is happening in your inbox, on emails, summarizing the last 20 emails, giving a to-do list with all the deadlines. So it's really kind of a personal assistant that has access to all your documents, all your information, where you can collaborate with, ask certain questions to.
And did you already try it in different applications, and how did it work for you?
Yeah, well, first thing is getting it up and running. So
that was already a struggle. Or...
Well, no, so you activate the license. That's the easy part. Buying it. But then
getting out your money is always easy.
But then activating it within the different applications, it's a bit of a struggle, and you need to look where can I find it actually. But of course, Microsoft has done it very nicely, where it starts popping up here is Copilot. Maybe ask a question or do this or do that.
Yeah, nice.
I actually already tried it in different applications. So I tried it in Teams, I tried it in Outlook, I tried it in PowerPoint and Word. What is good is that Microsoft has prepared some predefined prompts and predefined things you can do with it. So you have those building blocks where say, summarize an email and then you have a / and then if you do that you get access to the last emails.
Okay,
so
nice.
it really helps you. And it's a very similar process and way of working in different applications.
And which applications do you see because for me in some applications I really liked working with Copilot, and in other ones I liked it a bit less. I want to see whether it's like you had the same experience. Where do you think like the value from you would be like biggest value of using it, and where would it be least?
My experience up until today is that it's quite good when interacting with one particular document and you might want to rewrite things, or you might want to add some text. For example, I write a lot of proposals. Sometimes it's interesting to, for example, add a frequently asked questions section or a summary of everything that I have done. I put that in my document, so that's the creation part. So that's more in Word environment.
In a Word document.
Then translating it into a PowerPoint, it's working. That's a good thing. Is it perfect? No, because I have my way of creating slides. I have my way because I want to create kind of a storyline if I present something.
Exactly.
Of course, this
Copilot
Copilot
that work for you.
doesn't know what I want to convey and how I want to pitch things. And so there, I still miss that a little bit. So if we can kind of fine-tune that, I think it will really help me speed up certain...
I also had an interesting one where I tried to like prepare this podcast with Word and just have Copilot like write an entire script for this. And so what I did was I had like a prompt where I said, okay, use these 3 topics, make sure that there's some interaction between the speakers, and just write your own thing, right? And so I was like really curious what it was gonna do. And so long story short, it made you a CEO of a Gen AI startup, which was quite hallucinating. And so it started hallucinating quite a lot. I also, by the way, added like the topic of the lawsuit between OpenAI and the New York Times, and it actually started writing about the lawsuit between OpenAI and the Financial Times. So it it messed up some things. So I'm not sure whether like it's supposed to work with like the web and everything and pull stuff from there, but at least from what I used it for, it was really quite hallucinating a lot.
And I think that's also I think it revolves around everything around generative AI. It's how are we going to interact with the applications, right? Now you had maybe a strange or a bad interaction with it, but then you can be, in the first reflection is to be very critical of the application. Maybe it works very well, but you didn't find the key, let's say, to enable the application.
How to work with it.
And I think that's something, it's the education phase where we are in, where I think some of our customers are in as well.
Exactly.
We noticed during the project, where it's super important to educate people and just go and make these mistakes, but try to learn from it, of course. So hopefully you learn something from that strange interaction to in the next time.
But it's an interesting remark that you're making, because in essence what you're now saying is we as humans should adapt to the tool to make best use of it. My reflection would be humans are very bad at change. So today it's a struggle to make it really work for your needs. So for me, I was quite disappointed at that end that I need to change my behavior to make it work. Whereas I would have expected that I would just keep on going as I do, and the tool would help me out. And there was a little bit of disappointment on my side.
It's funny to see like 2 sides of the spectrum, because I think I'm like both of you guys, where I think like we will meet somewhere in the middle. I think especially for like PowerPoint and Word, the tools really still will probably like become better and like less hallucination and those kind of things, or maybe even fancier slides or whatever will be made. But then indeed for other things we will still need to be sure that we check the outputs. Or I also like experimented with PowerPoint, and when I just say like, okay, make a slide deck about X, Y, or Z, it just makes 10 slides or whatever. But if you really like, it's a bit of pre-prompt engineering, if you will. It's not that advanced, but if you add more information to your prompt, then you will see that your slide or the slides that are created by Copilot are also going to be improved. So I think it's a bit both ways. They will still improve the tool, and we have to learn how to work with it, I guess.
Exactly. But I still see it, and definitely it could have been better, but of course it's also it just released, I think, right? For me, it's a bit the analogy between analyzing your data in Excel and starting to learn writing code in Python. At the beginning you will struggle, and maybe even a Python that was released in 1998, there are still flaws, but there's also a huge upside, a huge potential, and I think it's just a missed opportunity for us as well, because I think there's already some efficiency gains to win. We just have to learn about, okay, where can we use it, where can't we use it, but I think the upside of really learning that skill to use it in an efficient way can be really a huge game changer.
What is there? Of course, we need to keep in mind that Microsoft has of course guardrailed the solution a little bit. For example, there was a legal text, and I asked, "Can you translate it?" And the answer that I got back was, "This is a legal text. I am not supposed to alter legal text. You should contact someone that has experience in legal context to make those amendments or changes." And that's of course Microsoft that has just guardrailed it, Copilot, and they understand it, because imagine that I make a certain change, blindly... I send it, and then afterwards it is, but it's Copilot. Who's then responsible? And so I think now it's very guardrailed. Of course, the interesting stuff happens on the edge of the possibilities. And I think there, creating your own generative AI applications might want to be the best solution for your problem, because if I'm someone who's needing to change a lot of legal texts, I want my Copilot to change those legal texts, and I do not want it to be guardrailed by Microsoft. And so there, I think indeed choosing which technology, which solution we will use for what problem, that will probably be the key. And today we try to do everything with Copilot, which is not meant to do everything. We're trying to do everything with a custom-made Gen AI application, which is not the case. And we try to do everything with ChatGPT, which is also not the case. So making use of the right components and the right problem, I think that will already solve a lot of problems.
That for me is also the key in adoption of these tools, because indeed you mentioned, okay, there's a Copilot function in Word, but what do you want to write in Word? I mean, it can't do everything, it can't handle all the structures, it can't do all the exceptions, and there, for the adoption for the business, I think start from that business problem or that inefficiency that you see in your company. Try to create, let's say, a ranking of those inefficiencies and see how you can create a really specific application using these generative AI models to actually be applied on these inefficiencies to really own or improve that one.
Before we switch to the last topic, I also want to add my 5 cents, and then we go. So I think, first of all, I think it's nice for Microsoft, or a good way for them to already have it at least out there, even with its flaws, to know like how people try to use it, get feedback, what is frustrating for people who use it, and where do they have to put their money on and become better. And then secondly, I think one thing we zoomed in quite a bit now on Word and on PowerPoint, but I think especially in Teams, and also potentially, but it didn't fully work for me yet in Outlook, but I think in those two applications, like Copilot can really be a rock star. Like I've already seen it doing things in Teams, and in Teams it's like if you speak in Dutch or if you speak in English or whatever, it can just transcribe it for you, it can summarize it for you, you can ask questions about the meeting, like all of those things are really great. And then I think similar things are also coming to Outlook, but for me it didn't fully work yet. But curious to play with it in the future. All right, so then we have our last topic, which was one that you actually brought on, Florian, if I'm not mistaken, which was an interesting report that you read from McKinsey. So tell us all about it.
I won't tell you all about it, but I will just pick one statement on my LinkedIn. I follow McKinsey, and I often come across these big numbers, let's say, these estimations.
What did you dig up right now? Which number?
I think 4 trillion is the amount of money, or the market size, let's say, for all revenue, let's say, that generative AI applications efficiency can enable within the banking industry. So I thought that's quite
and it's like big, global?
It's global. It's global.
Hopefully.
in the future. I don't exactly remember, let's say, the timeline. but yeah, I think it's a huge amount, which of course is based on something, and it also means that even the management consultants or the strategic consultants also believe in the not yet perfect, but a huge upside of generative AI applications. So
And
I
then
was also curious to have your insights or your takes on, okay, what are then some of the quick wins that, for example, Belgian banks,
could
for
be,
example, could be going for on a small scale.
Yeah. It's a huge number, 5.3, 4.3 trillion.
4.5 or something.
Yeah. The question is what is in that number, because of course you have the whole, let's say, customer facing part where you have efficiency gains on creating contracts, having better communication, etc. But you also have the full backend thing. I think that's also included in there. A bank, in a way, it's a technology company, right?
It's a
Nowadays,
huge company.
Exactly.
If you see the Belgian banks, well, they are driving on data, they are driving on technology. Of course, technology needs to be created and supported and sustained, and you create tickets, and there are many people working in there. So that is probably also included in that figure, I guess.
So yeah, definitely. It's really just taking the whole banking industry. So also IT, customer service, marketing, finance, the finance department, of course, of the bank. So it takes everything into account.
Well, and in essence, of course, the banking industry is probably a very big industry. Lots of people are working in there. If you have efficiency gains at each level, well, you probably end up on that figure. And if you take kind of a holistic viewpoint, it isn't very surprising that in each domain there are some efficiency gains to be won. Everyone is, like you mentioned, everyone is having meetings and needing to recall what happened in that meeting. Imagine that you can reduce that time spent each day for every person in the banking industry with 10 minutes. That's a huge gain. If you can then have automated content being generated in marketing, reduce that with 10%, that's a huge gain. So I think all of those things will probably add up to that figure. But it's of course, an enormous figure. But I do believe that it will probably have a huge impact, and then we will end up with that figure.
Maybe a fun question: if you would be like, let's say, in the elevator with the CTO of Belfius or BNP or like a bank that is operational in Belgium, and that person would ask you like, hey, as a CTO, I'm looking at this generative AI thing. I saw this article by McKinsey, and I just want to know, like, in this elevator ride, do you have like 3 things that I would have to like investigate, like that could be interesting projects in terms of generative AI? What would you tell them? It shouldn't have to be 3, but like...
No, but my advice would be send a company-wide email to everyone, explain them a little bit the context, and ask them, everyone has those 3 things where you say, where are you spending a lot of time in? And if you can do this more efficiently, what would make you more happy at the end of the week? I'm pretty sure that everyone can write out 3 things.
And especially the repetitive tasks, right?
Yeah. And if everyone within your company does that, you can then summarize all of that content through
with a clustering algorithm or something.
Well, I would use GPT model for that. And you end up with a huge amount of information and use cases. And in essence, the cool thing is the technology behind is quite standard and fixed, because you need a language model, you might need a vector database, and you might need internal knowledge and internal documents. All of those things are present within the organization. So it's finding the right use case. I think that will probably be my tip for that CTO.
That's
Start from the business problem. What is frustrating people? Where are people spending a lot of time? And can we resolve that with generative AI? I don't know how you look at it.
Yeah, exactly the same. And then maybe from my, let's say, a bit more coding background, I think the GitHub Copilot, as you introduced Microsoft Copilot in the beginning. If you have a big IT team, which in the banking you probably have, it's almost a no-brainer to enable these subscriptions. and to enable coders to, in their Visual Studio, in the environment where they are coding, to get direct feedback, to receive suggestions, like you're writing an email and you get a suggestion for the next word. There you're writing code and you just get a suggestion for the next 5 lines of code, where you don't even have to.
Will we then have autocorrect errors in coding, or
Could be, it could be. I think there's less freedom in coding than in natural language, but no, yeah. So that for me is a huge game changer as well, especially also in adopting these new technologies, right? How do we have to create a generative AI application? Yeah, nobody knew 2 years ago or 1 year ago. With Copilot, it already also helps you in generating these frameworks and these lines of code, so it can really help you along the way and saves a lot of time. I think around 80%, just to throw out a number, but it's like an 80% efficiency gain if they A/B tested it at Microsoft, I think. So.
All right, interesting. I think that about rounds it up, right? So I think 3 interesting topics. Thank you guys for having your visions on those 3 topics as well, and also to the audience, of course, big thank you for chiming in today, for listening in. So this was our first one of a series, and we will probably make a lot more after this one, depending on how
it is received,
how much inspiration we have as well. So thank you for listening in, and we hear you in the next episode.